Hello again, this is Mahmoud Zalt and here's a demo for LaraDock version 2.2. First, if you're not familiar with LaraDock, it's the tool that helps you run your Laravel application on top of Docker. So as it says here, it's like Laravel Homestead but for Docker instead of Vagrant. So Docker and Vagrant both provide you with virtual things. However, Vagrant provides or builds virtual machines, while Docker does the same with virtual containers. Okay? And since Laravel Homestead tries to give you a virtual development environment on top of a virtual machine, LaraDock is doing the same but with Docker. So it gives you a virtual development environment on top of Docker, and that exactly on Docker containers. Okay, if you want more on how to compare Docker with Vagrant and Homestead with LaraDock, you can go to this section here and read it. Okay, just quickly we'll go over some of the supported containers as of this release. We have, of course, multiple versions of PHP FPM. We have Nginx on its own container as well, many database engines and cache systems, and most importantly here we have this workspace container which contains Composer, a PHP CLI, Laravel installer, Git, Node, Gulp, Bower, and many other tools. So let's get started. First of all, there are some requirements, and these are different between Linux users and Mac and Windows users. So that's because Docker runs natively on Linux. That's why you just need to install Docker Engine and Docker Compose, which is the tool that helps you run Docker. And while on the Mac and Windows, you can just install this toolbox, which add few tools to those. So one of them, and the most important one, is the Docker machine. And this is a virtual machine that helps running Docker on Windows and Mac, because it runs natively on Linux. So that virtual machine provided with a Linux virtual machine, so it runs on top of it. Okay. The installation steps are very simple, at least for the Docker toolbox. So let's get started. Now let's go to the installation, where we have two scenarios. It's either we are working on an existing project and we are shifting from Homestead or whatever other solutions there are to Docker, or we are starting from scratch. By that I mean you don't have any Laravel installed and you want to run a container SSH into it and then have yourself a copy of Laravel. However, I will be covering both scenarios, but I will start with the second one. So, first things first, we have this empty directory opened in the terminal. I will clone this LaraDock project. So let's get back to the documentation, and that's it for the installation. Let's start using it. So for Mac and Windows, as I mentioned, you need to have a virtual host running because you are already on a virtual machine. And to do this, you can type docker machine list to see what virtual machines you have. So my default virtual machine is currently running. If it's not, I would say docker machine start and the default, or if it has different name, you should also put the name. Since my machine is running, I'll go back to the documentation and go to step 2, where I have to run my own containers. And this is very simple. All you have to do is docker compose up -d to say this is on the background, and then specify your containers. So for this I'm gonna be also running Nginx and MySQL. However, here's a list of all the supported containers. So I'll copy this, cd into the LaraDock installation and paste it right there. As you can see, it tells me it's creating all these containers. That's because there's some dependencies between the containers, like the MySQL requires this data container to be running, and also Nginx will require PHP, FPM, which requires the application. So this is why you see multiple containers running. However, on your machine you will see different results, especially if you run this command for the first time, because Docker will have to provision these containers and prepare them for you. So the script will look just like this. I ran this before this video and it took about 5 minutes to finish, depend on your connection speed. So to speed up the process, I run it before, and now let's type docker compose ps, so that Docker shows us the state of our containers for this project, and we can see that MySQL, Nginx, PHP, FPM, and the workspace are up, while application and data are exited, and that's totally alright because we don't need to have them running. They just hold some data. Let's go back to the documentation and to step number 3. So now we need to go inside the workspace container because there is where we run some commands. Okay, so let's go there. Just add the container name, type bash. So if you list, this is the list. On this directory you will see LaraDock, and there is where you must have Laravel installed, okay, on this directory. So you can install Laravel any way you like. Let's go back to the documentation where it tells us in step 4, if you don't have Laravel installed, go to this place where you can install it any way you like. However, I'm gonna be using this way, but I will install Laravel 5.2. So let's try it. In this container you can run commands like composer, artisan, PHP unit, bower, gulp, maybe later will support also grunt and any other things. Alright, I guess just taking some time to load the dependencies. Alright, so this takes some time, and I guess I will stop this video and get back. And here we come back. So we have Laravel installed. All the composer dependencies are now downloaded and installed. So let's go back to the installation steps and let's talk a little bit about this one. So if you remember that LaraDock assumes that the Laravel installation is just on this directory, so it gets shipped with the project later on. But since we installed Laravel right now inside that project, we either have to edit our docker compose.yaml file, or we need to move Laravel to this directory. So it's optional, both are valid. However, for the simplicity, I will copy this project manually. However, you don't have to do it, but just to make things clear, let's assume we installed Laravel on this directory where LaraDock gets shipped with the application itself or within the same project. So now if I list this directory, I should have Laravel installed here. Let's go back and now go to the usage again where we left it. Alright, that's cool. So now we have to open our env file. So to set the DB host to match our Docker IP. Okay, first of all we need to find the Docker IP. So let's exit this container, type Docker machine IP. This way I can get my Docker IP address. However, if you are on Linux, go to the documentation and find your Docker IP. Okay, I will get back inside that container, and now I will edit the env file. So I have to replace the DB host default IP with my Docker IP, and if you're using Redis, you have to do it as well here. Okay, finally, let's give some permission, because I'm sure this will cause a little problem. And yep, let's go to that IP address. It's 192.168.99 and 100. Beautiful. Now we have Laravel installed and running on top of Docker. Now I will show you how to run it on an existing project. Okay, first of all, let me exit this container. I will also docker compose down, and that's because I don't need those containers anymore. I can type down. This will stop all the containers and also will remove them. So if I type docker ps, of course nothing is running, and if I see if any container still exists, with the docker ps -a, I see that also nothing exists anymore. I will go back out of this directory and will clean it completely. Okay, I will get one of the project that I am currently working on. I will take only this directory. Okay, but my Git is not inside this one. So since in any normal project you will be using Git, I will have Git now installed. So all you have to worry about this here is that we have this, a Laravel installation, okay, anywhere we want. So we can place this anywhere, like assuming you are working with your existing project. So just navigate into your project and follow this installations. Let's use the submodule to include LaraDock in our existing project and also get inside it. Now let's run our containers. So I want Nginx, MySQL, and I'm using Redis for this one. So let's run them. If I type docker compose ps, I should see all the containers are up. Let's go inside this workspace container, and if I list everything here, we can see our project. So what do I need to do is, as you know, so far we have to first edit our env file. I'll assume that we used to use Homestead, so let's edit it and change the default Vagrant and Homestead IP into our IP, which I believe it was 99.100, and I should use it for the DB host and the Redis host if you are using Redis. And yes, that's it. That's all you have to do to switch from Homestead to Docker. And in this container you can run anything, so we can continue your development normally. Let's say you want to run your tests, you can type PHP unit or whatever tool you're using. You can also type artisan command. However, before I migrate my database into those containers, let me show you how to connect to MySQL. I'm using this SQL Pro, or you can use any tool you prefer. You just have to put the Docker IP address and the default port, unless you have a different port. Of course, the credentials as well. Let's try to connect. You see there's no tables, so if I type PHP artisan migrate, and if I go back and I refresh, I should see all my tables. I will also, for this project, show you how I mean, show you that this project is actually working, because this is an API, by the way. This is called, and the project name is Hello API. So let me show you that we can also call endpoints from any tool you prefer. So if I just run the create new user endpoint, and let's refresh the data. Actually, here's the record. So the same way, you can also use any Redis a client, and you will see that, I mean, also you have to put the host IP, which is the Docker IP address, and the port, the default port for this we are using. Same concept everywhere. So yeah, that's it. Just to talk a little bit about this Hello API that we're just running. It's also another open source project that I'm currently working on. It's basically an API starter. So if you want to build an API on top of Laravel, you would just get this project, which provides you with a huge list of features that could be very useful for you. Let's get back to LaraDock now. I will exit this container, and I will stop all the current running containers. So if I type now docker compose ps, it should tell me that everything has exited. And if I type docker ps, of course I will see that nothing is currently running, but these containers are available to run them anytime you prefer. Let's say I want to run this Nginx container. I would say docker, actually always prefer to use docker compose, so I can say docker compose up, and then add the Nginx, just like this, and would also only run the dependencies for Nginx, which are PHP, FPM, workspace, and the application containers. Alright, that's it. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, and take care.